and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and with us today, Dr. Marc Lamont Hill. He doesn't like to use that, but we're putting it in. Distinguished Professor of African American Studies at Morehouse College, a CNN and BET contributor. You see him almost every day, and the author of an important, timely, and incisive new book, Nobody: Casualties of America's War on the Vulnerable, from Ferguson to Flint and Beyond. And thank you so much, Marc, for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, certainly beyond. I mean,
absolutely.
The book is incredible. I can't imagine how you must feel knowing how much has happened since you finished writing it.
No, absolutely. One of the things people asked me when I started to write the book was, will it be relevant still? Are you worried about writing a book that begins with Mike Brown? Because 2 years later, the book will be out and we won't be talking about Mike Brown anymore. What's turned out, we're still talking about Mike Brown. But we're also talking about these other issues.
Right, all of these others. So to start with, we always ask our guests to place themselves in Black America. Yeah. Where did you grow up? Who were the influences on your life?
Yeah, I grew up in Philadelphia and North Philadelphia I began, and then spent the later part of my childhood in West Philadelphia. And in both cases, I was surrounded by a wonderful, loving community. I didn't grow up in a particularly wealthy neighborhood. I grew up in a very poor neighborhood, in fact. And I was surrounded by lots of stuff, drugs and guns and, all the things that, can make life challenging for the vulnerable. And in many ways, I was just lucky.
How so? How so?
And I say that because many people will paint themselves as heroic figures.
But you did it all yourself.
Yeah, I did it myself. I was surrounded by social misery, but I just worked harder than everybody else. And that's not true. I mean, I did have some things in place that were good for me. I had parents who were supportive. I had two parents in the house. They were both educators who had sort of pulled themselves up by the bootstraps. My father was born in 1928 in Georgia. My mother born in 1939 in Prince Edward County in Virginia. They literally closed the schools there when it was time to integrate them. Brown versus Board, they said we'd rather have no school than have black people go to school. So she moved to the north to find school. My father moved out of the Jim Crow South, joined the military, and then eventually went back to school. So they both valued education because they had to work so hard to access it.
Sure.
After that, they instilled that in me, my brothers, my sister.
How many?
There are 5 of us total. And they really imparted this idea that you have to work hard and get education. And that helped.
And did all 5 make it out?
No, but many of us did. All of us are doing our best against sometimes some tough odds.
Sure.
And it's fascinating now to go back to reflect on those moments where I didn't follow the right path, and I think, wow, the only difference between me and my friends who are incarcerated, or me and my brother who just came home a few years ago from prison, or me and friends who are dead, and many of my friends, childhood friends, are dead, isn't that I worked harder or did better. It's just that I got lucky, or I didn't get caught, or I made a different choice, or I stayed home that day, or whatever the issue might be. So I never overstate the value of hard work, at the same time that I see hard work and character as a key thing here.
Yeah, so you have to work hard and you have to be lucky.
That's exactly right.
Is the thing. We're going to go into the detail of the book in just a minute, but I want to get your assessment of where we are now. So you have this firsthand personal experience of how tough it is, that some of your siblings didn't make it out. You did.
Yeah.
You're a professor with a doctorate and, highly thought of. Your opinion is respected. We hang on every word when you're doing analysis. What do you think about this country now?
I think we're at a key moment here, a critical moment. I don't think that we are necessarily worse off than we were, say, 10 years ago or 8 years ago. Some of the polls will say, since President Obama has come into office, race relations have gotten worse. I think that's very much the worldview of people who could hide themselves from racism. And
who had no idea how bad it was.
They didn't know how bad it was, right? They just didn't have access to it.
Right,
They had willful ignorance to it.
Right.
But the truth is, we've been wrestling with state violence for a long time. We've been wrestling with inequality for a long time. America is founded on inequality and the exploitation of labor, and so that's no different. I think right now that we have a unique opportunity to have public discussions about those things. Conversations that were once in the back burner are now at the front. For example, mass incarceration is something that everybody talks about.
Sure.
No one talked about that even 5 years ago in the way that they have right now. Mm-hmm. We're able to talk about state violence in a way that's eyes wide open. Before these cell phone cameras emerged, many people didn't want to believe that police would shoot unarmed people, or that people would be running away and get shot in the back, as Walter Scott was in Charleston. But now we have access to a different kind of conversation. And while it's still messy and it's still dangerous out here for many of us, there's at least a chance to make a different choice. And when you combine the backdrop of economic inequality, social and cultural deprivation, and extreme amounts of violence, when you combine that with the current presidential cycle, we have people running for office on two very different platforms.
Right.
There's a real opportunity to figure out what direction we want to go in as a nation.
Right. So you will probably be one of the architects of where this country goes after this election. And, what's the first thing you say? I noticed that you, in the book, refer to it as the state. It gives it a very ominous, reference to it.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you suggesting? I'm sort of doing this backwards because I know you also talk about the nobodies who are now the somebodies who are trying to correct
Right.
the discrepancies in our culture.
Yeah, I think the key first is to recognize how the state operates, right? And that's why I constantly frame it as the state as opposed to just saying the government or the powers that be. I think we have to understand that there is a government infrastructure here that has a set of practices and beliefs and values. And that the incidents that happen, whether it's state violence or whether it's joblessness or homelessness or poverty writ large, aren't accidents. They are part of a system that generates this kind of stuff. Since its founding, America has been founded on somebody being rendered nobody. We often say the system is broken, the system is broken. And the truth is, the system isn't broken, the system is working. This is how the system is designed. Our goal has to be to say...
doing what it was meant to do.
Exactly.
Right.
So we should say not that the system is broken and we should make it work, but rather the system is working and we should break it. And for me to break it, we first have to have an understanding of what it is and how it functions, which is what I try to do in the book. But then we also must recognize that those who are framed and marked as nobody in this country, whether it's because you're poor, whether it's because you're gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender, whether it's because you're a woman.
Or an immigrant.
Whether it's because you're an immigrant.
Right.
All of these things, other abled, all of these identities can, at different points and at different moments, get you marked as nobody. You're disposable, vulnerable.
Right. Invisible.
Invisible
you
even.
refer to Ralph Ellison and his book.
Absolutely.
The Invisible Man.
Right. It's this weird way where you can be, as a black person, invisible. They don't see you, or they erase you. They put you in prison because you have, they throw you in these other institutions that hide you. And at the other side, instead of being invisible, you can be hyper visible, right? You're just walking down the street,
right,
with a hoodie on,
right,
and suddenly you get seen as a civic terror that needs to be stopped with lethal force,
right.
So it's an interesting tension. Yeah,
I love that in the part of the book where you talk about someone who was stopped because he looked a policeman in the eye,
right.
And that goes back to those old days when a black person was not supposed to look at a white person on the street.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, if you make eye contact with a policeman, you could absolutely be in jail or worse.
Absolutely. When you talk
just from that.
Absolutely. That's how Freddie Grays' death sequence begins. He looks an officer in the eye. The officer sees that as disrespect and begins chasing him. And as you point out, that goes back to ancient Mesopotamia. I mean, slaves weren't allowed to look people in the eye. In fact, the word ingenudo actually means like one who shouldn't look people in the eye, right? So there's this way in which we're still reenacting these very old rituals around inequality and oppression and dehumanization. So for me, the way to fix this, the way to get somewhere, is to have a theory of the state, to have an analysis of what's going on in the system, and then to help organize those who are marked as nobody to change the world, because that's always been what's happened. The people at the bottom have enough. They say enough. And then they organize, they get political education, and they struggle for justice.
So as we have now in the case of Black Lives Matter.
Absolutely.
The
BYP 100.
Y100, Charlene Carruthers, I know she was on the show talking about the work that they're doing. So you say these are the nobodies who are becoming the somebodies
Right.
that are upsetting the system as it was created that suppresses the invisible people.
Absolutely. But it's key to remember that these nobodies have always been somebody.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. They get marked as nobody, but they've always been somebody. And I know you weren't saying that, but
Right.
that's a key for us
Precisely.
to understand for ourselves. Because historically, there's always been resistance, whether it's people saying, holding up signs saying, I am a man, or in Alcatraz saying, we are men, and we should also say women, right?
Right.
Sojourner Truth, rather, ain't I a woman?
Right.
Right. There's this way in which we are always asserting our humanity. Screaming out Black Lives Matter is an assertion
Exactly.
of humanity. Jesse Jackson saying, I am somebody. All of this is an assertion of our humanity that is leveraged through hard work, organizing, and activism to make change.
Okay. I was struck by a clip that we're going to show now, because a lot of what you talk about in the book is Michael Brown, this teenager, shot, killed, left on the street, and somebody referred to him as a like he was nobody, that nobody cared. Let's take a look at that clip now.
We used to hang out in trees like strange fruit. They would lynch us. Oh, they do still do it. They just do it by other means. We're not hanging down from trees, because hanging down from trees is politically incorrect. Instead, you see Mike Brown's body in Canfield Court laying there for 4 hours.
All right, make it plain.
His body laying there for 4 hours. We was out there, that little boy, that young man, 18 years old. It took him 2 hours to put a sheet over him. And the sheet didn't fit.
Yes, sir.
You pull it up and his feet were poking out. They pulled it up the other way. His head was sticking out. Flies and buzzards flying around his body. 95 degrees outside. The stench of death in the air. Babies standing around. Young people standing around. Elders standing around. Seeing that child that they watched for 18 years lay there like he didn't belong to nobody.
Big brother.
That's a lynching.
Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
What happened to Tamir Rice
Big brother.
was a lynching.
Big brother.
12-year-old boy, they call him in, is what, 21?
That's right.
Playing with a toy gun, somehow they see real gun. People say, well, that's an honest mistake. It ain't no honest mistake.
Big brother.
Ain't nothing honest about that mistake. Because even if he ain't had no gun, like Trayvon, even if he up like this, like Eric Garner,
Yes, sir.
even if he running away like Walter Scott,
Yes, sir.
they all ended up the same way. Family, we can't contort ourselves out of police terrorism.
That's right.
We can't behave our way out of police terrorism.
That's right.
So thank you for that preaching. In the book, I showed you my copy, which is yellow marked all the way through.
Which I appreciate.
That's
a good sign.
That's a good sign, even though and the corners folded down, the whole business. I was struck by your looking at the layers of failure, in a sense, of this system that's been created. And one of the things that you talk about really movingly is the broken window concept, because so many of the bad things that have happened, to just put an umbrella, a circle around it, the bad things that have happened recently, so many people killed, started with such trivial things. It's like selling a CD, selling a cigarette, a supposedly broken taillight. But you say that all of this was deliberate, a way of policing and a way of controlling people, this broken windows
Absolutely.
State of policing.
Yeah, broken windows policing initially was designed as a way to make neighborhoods safer and better and really to engage community. The principal idea, of course, was that, if there's a window that's broken and it doesn't get fixed in a neighborhood, it sends a sign that you can do whatever you want in that neighborhood or to that window, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can rob the house, you can graffiti on the house because no one cares about it. So the idea was that we could attend to the superficial things what social scientists call social disorder. And if we dealt with social disorder, we could reduce crime. That's the logic behind it. But the logic behind broken windows policing was also that we would go in the neighborhoods and figure out what the laws were, what the unwritten laws and rules were, that communities would have some say in how neighborhoods get policed. Not that we would go through a neighborhood like an occupying army and simply terrorize everybody. Not that we would walk in and find every person selling cigarettes or CDs and lock them up and criminalize them. That's the exact opposite of what broken windows policing has become. So what we've done under the guise or the title of broken windows policing is simply infiltrate neighborhoods and over-police them. And what we find is that when you over-police a neighborhood, you over-criminalize a neighborhood. In other words, of course crime is higher in our neighborhoods because that's where all the police are. That's where we're looking. And so, yeah, I could go to any neighborhood and find someone violating a crime. I could find someone loitering or littering or publicly storing food or disorderly conduct. I could go to Columbia University or Harvard University on a Friday night and lock up a bunch of people for public drunkenness or disorderly conduct or simple possession of marijuana. But I'm not looking there. So when I go to an Eric Garner in Staten Island and I see him selling Lucy cigarettes, or I go to Baton Rouge and I see Alton Sterling selling CDs, And instead of seeing that as a harmless crime, a victimless crime largely, I mean, we could have conversations about copyright law, but
Sure.
at the core,
Sure.
no one's being hurt by this.
Right.
And instead of saying, hey, that's just him, let him do it, or telling him to go away, it begins an interaction with law enforcement that becomes violent. And the fact that so many of these incidents become violent. Walter Scott in Charleston, who gets shot in the back for child support. Doesn't mean you don't pay child support, it just
Right.
means it doesn't have to go down this way. The sister last night, Corinne Gaines. This
Right.
begins over trafficking.
23
Yeah, 23 years
years
old.
old.
And her son,
Right.
she gets killed, her son gets shot, 5 years
Right.
old. It begins over traffic infraction.
Right.
You look at a place like Ferguson, 20,000 people in the town, 16,000 of them, 16,000 out of a town of 20,000 have some sort of warrant or ticket infraction.
In fact, that's how they were supporting their city government, right?
it's the
That
business.
was one of the findings.
It's a
that
town's industry.
When they stopped ticketing black people there, they had a shortfall. And Philandro Castile, outside of St. Paul, Minnesota, a suburb of that, shot while he sat in his car trying to inform a police officer that he had a gun. He had permission to carry it.
Right.
So that didn't get him very far. But I was just stunned to know that he had been stopped 46 times in his short life by the police for some sort of traffic infraction. And they said that most of them, he was stopped for things that couldn't be seen, from the outside.
Right.
It was just suspicion.
Right.
But then you talk about this next layer of blockage. When they get to jail, Sandra Bland was, couldn't raise the bail money.
Right.
And she died. We still don't know definitively how, but that is the next territory where the vulnerable get
Absolutely.
stopped.
And that's why it's an economic issue as much as it is anything else, right? I mean, the pretext stops are what, the tail lights,
Right.
the lane changes. If I followed you, I'm sure you're a great driver, but if I followed you,
No, the worst. But
but even if you were a great driver, I'm a great driver.
Right,
And if you
you're
followed either of us for 20 minutes, I'm sure you'd find a moment where we're not 4 car lengths behind another car,
Right.
where we don't make the right signal, we don't stop the exact number of seconds at
Sure.
a stop sign. You can always find a reason to police someone and to follow someone and ultimately to charge someone or ticket someone if you look hard enough. And that's what seems to happen to us. But like you said, once you get into the crosshairs, Sandra Bland, she had a $5,000 bail, $500 bond. She didn't have the money.
Right.
She simply didn't have the money. And so instead of going home, she stays in jail.
and you said in the book that 83% of the people who are in jail are there because they could not raise the money to get out.
Right,
But-
exactly, and that's jail, not prison, jail. Right, just to be
Right.
clear for the viewers. So yeah, 83% are there and could be home if they had more money. So now we have a question of exchanging money for freedom. That's not the spirit or the purpose behind the bail system. It was to make sure that people return to court, not to become a way, it's not a punishment, and it's not a way of locking up the poor and letting the middle class and the rich out for the same crimes. We need a new system.
And now you take up the prosecutor Mosby in Baltimore.
Yes.
For her speediness at which some people would say that's a good thing. She indicted them right away. But now we know that all of those police officers have been released without any guilt found whatsoever.
Yeah, I think she did. Let me be very clear. I think
Yeah.
Marilyn Mosby did a great job. I think her call for justice was significant and courageous. There will be debates about whether she overcharged and whether that undermined the case. There'll be debates about whether she should have charged maybe 2 of the officers instead of all 6, whether Cesar Goodson should have been charged only. There are debates about that,
Sure.
but I think she operated in good faith, and I think we should be protecting her from many of the assaults that she's receiving right now. I think she was right. That said, many of us who are applauding her for using her prosecutorial power in that way don't realize that, as the old folks say, she may have struck a straight lick with a crooked stick. In other words, it worked out well in this case, but most of the time when prosecutors deploy that kind of power, it operates against the vulnerable.
Right.
Not what Marilyn Mosby did, but in other cases, because we live in a moment where the prosecutor has essentially replaced the judge as the ultimate arbiter. Mandatory minimums mean the judges don't have any latitude in what they can do. And so what happens is what the prosecutor chooses to charge becomes the ultimate decider. And so that means that prosecutors have a ton of power, and that can be very, very dangerous. And the mandatory minimums, it's important to know, and from a historical perspective, were largely a liberal project. Right? Conservatives wanted to get tough on crime for sure and said we need mandatory minimums.
Right.
But liberals also, like Edward Kennedy said, hey, wait a minute. When you have these sentences of 2 years to 30 years, it's not fair because certain people are getting to 2 and other people are getting to 30. So let's make a mandatory sentence. But that also has come down to hurt the vulnerable. So sometimes failed liberal projects, like I talk about in housing or like I talk about with sentencing, are just as culpable as failed conservative projects. But all of that conspires against the vulnerable, the prosecutor and the public defender system.
And the system, and of course this mass imprisonment system that we have. But one of the theories that you examine in the book is that most people think that these small crimes will eventually lead to bigger crimes.
Yeah.
That's why you've got to get them. And that black people, or people of color particularly, are subject to being criminals. And I want to play this clip of you in your role as a CNN contributor there with Harry Houck.
Ooh, we were doing so well.
I know. No. Let's take a look at this, because the whole idea is, are black people more likely to be criminals than whites?
Yeah. We did an investigation of the Ferguson Police Department. I talk about this in my new book. And there is considerable evidence of racism in Ferguson. So it isn't true that there was no evidence of racism. There were racist emails, racist phone calls, racist practices.
He's saying in this specific incident.
No,
Come on, a couple.
Let me finish.
There were 3 emails, I believe, that were racist, correct?
But Harry, there's only
3
40
emails.
Harry, there's only like 100.
It doesn't matter.
But Harry, hold on.
That means it's
Hold on,
systemic.
guys.
Harry stood on national TV and just said that
It's
black people
not
are prone to
systemic.
criminality. I wouldn't be able to respond to that, okay?
Well, they are.
But you think black people are prone to criminality?
The statistics here show this.
You don't mean to say that. I'm gonna give you a chance to correct it. You don't mean that black people
What
are
does
prone
this
to
say?
criminality.
What does this say?
I don't know what that says,
All right.
but I know
The chief can back me up because he's coming
he's
right out of
not going to stay on national TV and say black people are prone to criminality.
I
either.
am telling you, 75%
I'm
of all
hoping you just
shootings
don't know.
are blacks.
I'm hoping you just don't know.
75% of shootings. What you're
Harry,
doing is you're interpreting something else I'm saying
Harry,
into your narrative. That's what you do.
I'm just trying
Harry,
to talk.
Mark, hold on one second. Hold on.
I think you just don't know
Chief,
prone.
points I'd like to make. First of all, I'm not
make
going to
your
say they're
points.
prone to crime because I don't believe it, and it's not true. That's the
course
first
it's not
thing.
true. It's racist.
The second thing, I have a slight difference.
It is not racist.
To say that black people are prone to
That's
criminality.
not what I said. I said 75% of the shootings that
Can I
occur
just-
in New York City are done by blacks. All right?
Guys.
And you keep on talking about this
Okay, can I-
disproportionate
also-
amount of whites and blacks in
Because
jail.
it is disproportionate,
And this is
Harry.
why. No, it's not.
No. All
It
right.
is, yeah, by the,
All right, guys,
by the
seriously,
definition,
seriously.
it is.
How about we don't yell?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to say.
All right.
Okay.
This is a conversation that is not always easy to have. You're going to have clashes of perspective. But we all know this, all right? If you do not have this conversation the right way, you do not move forward. You can discuss the difference between entire race is prone to criminality, which I know is not what you mean.
That's what we need, more civilized dialogue.
Just like that, right?
I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of
Ooh,
all
my
of
blood
this
pressure
in no
rushes
time.
just watching that. I can't believe that happened.
I know. But that's your job, is to sort of, straighten things out, because it's so easy to repeat statistics that he used.
Yeah.
And he is a former NYPD detective,
Right.
essentially saying that most crime was committed by blacks, which is, not true.
It's a troublesome argument. First of all, it's apples and oranges. The conversation was whether or not there's disproportionate incarceration rates in the United States.
Right.
He points to New York crime statistics. Even if everything he said were true about New York, that still wouldn't necessarily prove that there's not disproportionality in the United States, because the United States is bigger than New York. But he points to crime statistics. When it comes to black men, most black men are not in jail for violent crimes, which is what he pointed to. They're in jail for nonviolent drug offenses. So again, it's apples and oranges. But he also doesn't address the systemic issues around over-criminalization, over-policing, which is what Philip Banks talks about. Ironically, the brother on the left is the one who initiated the policing of Eric Garner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I talk about that in the book. He's the Philip Banks who said we need to clean up the neighborhood, because he was the top uniformed officer in New York at the time.
Right.
So there's a lot. The statistics can be used in many ways.
Sure.
But the truth is, there's much more evidence, incontrovertible evidence, that there's disproportionality in sentencing, in charging, in policing, in death penalty. Among blacks. Yeah.
We only have a short time left, but I do want you to say something about Flint and the water. I know that people are being charged now at long last.
Finally, yes.
Finally, it took a long time for that.
Yeah.
But that, like Katrina, was, you think, in the similar category of the vulnerable being left to fend for themselves and subjected to death, in a sense.
And that's the point. Just like Katrina. Katrina's a natural disaster, but it's the response that's unnatural, right? It's the fact that, and I don't think anyone blew up a levee in Katrina. I don't think anyone dropped lead in the water on purpose. But there's a level of indifference that emerges when the vulnerable are at play. If you took Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Katherine Johnson, Sandra Bland, all these people I talk about in the book, if they all lived in a town, the town would probably be just like Flint.
Like Flint.
Yeah, and that's the point.
Right.
You know, it's collective punishment for being poor, black, brown, politically disempowered, and that's what we need to think about. Flint is a microcosm of a bigger problem.
We always close the show out by having our guest finish the statement, the power, the strength of Black America lies in. What's it to you?
Organizing. The power of Black America lies in organizing. We need to analyze for sure. We need to act for sure. But there's something about organized movements that lead to the kind of change we want. You know, SNCC, SCLC, these were organized movements. Black Panthers, Nation of Islam, the UNIA, perhaps the towering movement of the 20th century. They were organized movements. At this moment, we need to organize. The story of Ferguson, for example, is not the story of August 9th when Mike Brown gets killed. It's August 10th when a nation of young people begin the longest and most effective resistance movement to state violence that we've ever seen in the United States. That's the key. So if we organize and struggle, we win.
And do you think that there is a win in sight, or?
Yes.
Yes?
I have to think that. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to keep fighting. You know, I have to believe that we're going to win because we always have. Every struggle we've ever fought for, we've won. And we've never won anything without struggling. So I continue to believe that we can win because 10 years ago, we couldn't imagine that gays could get married or that transgender, that trans bathroom access would be a key issue for us. We couldn't imagine an end to South Africa, you know,
Right.
25, 30 years ago. We couldn't imagine these things, but we struggled and we won. We beat apartheid, we can beat this.
All right. Mark, thank you so much
It's been a pleasure.
for being with us. Marc Lamont Hill, doctor at Morehouse. The book is Nobody, and it is an essential read. And thanks to you all out there for joining us as well. We will see you the next time. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America.